Yeah, I want to make sure I can be heard properly today. Hopefully, you can hear me properly now. There's a couple of videos I've been listening back and it's not doing as well. But anyway, the point of this video is I want to say what the real reason why black and indigenous people continuously be ignored and get mistreated the way they do is around the world, particularly in Australia and New Zealand and the Americas and Russia and I guess you could say South Africa and these places and that, is because, Hawaii as well, but anyway, is because we are still getting treated like war captives. Because as you know, with the white European invaders came in, had a war. They used smallpox and other diseases, and that shocked our people because too many of our peoples died, and so we surrendered. So that's why we're still getting mistreated, because the victor is going to mistreat the war captives. And so because we are different generations than what happened then, we are fighting along different paradigms. And it's funny how we believe shit that white people have taught us is, oh, it's supposed to be fair and it's supposed to be all this and all that. And, they tend to, try to commandeer and steer the fucking narrative in a certain direction, not realizing, and we don't realize what the fuck is really at play and why we still get mistreated the way we do. Not to mention, like the blackfellas, got brought to the Americas. you know, there was other African tribes that were warring with each other and kept bringing those war captives as slaves for the Europeans in exchange for certain things. So, yeah, you're getting treated like war captives. Not to mention there's other reasons that go into why, white fellas particularly hate black people, and that's because, the Arabs in Islam, if you watch this one video there, I might put a link in the description of this, is showing the racism in Islam and saying that, like white people deserve everything and black people deserve to go to hell. The Arabs are hardcore fucking racists. Hardcore racists. And so, they were poaching blackfellas as slaves for a long time. In fact, there'd be a lot more blackfellas as descendants in Arabia and the Middle East and North Africa if it wasn't for the fact they kept castrating the fucking men all the time and they were dying. And so that's why you don't really have that many black descendants anymore in a lot of those places. But anyway, thing about it is that they were pretty much, because when they came into the Arabs and that came into contact with the Europeans noticed, oh, who's that black person there doing everything for you, all the hard work and all the inconvenient work or whatever? Oh, that's my slave. And then they were pretty much brainwashing Europeans that blackfellas are a slave. They pretty much brainwashed Europeans into racist thoughts, But that's not the only thing. Another reason why Europeans started white supremacy is because, with the Moors, the Mongols, and the Turks invaded Europe, they kept noticing they were getting invaded by different people who looked different, who spoke different, who worshipped differently, and that's what started racism from there. Not to mention when they went to every part of the world, they noticed how everybody was pitch black and we were indigenous people, and that was really pissing them off. They didn't like that. So that's why we've started how they've started white supremacy. And I've always said this: white supremacy will end when non-white people want it to end. But because non-white people seem to love white people so much, that's why white supremacy continues. And see, we live in a day where we got liberal white supremacy now, because before it was always overt, and eventually that gets overthrown. And they realised that after the fucking civil rights movement of the 60s and that. And so what they do is they come in with this liberalist liberalist form of white supremacy, where a lot of people today, you ask particularly in the ghettos and that, who do you trust more? A lot of black fellas will say they like white people more because they're more docile. Oh, I want to get a white woman because she's more docile. I want to get a white man because he's better, he's more cultured. This kind of shit is because they've been brainwashed to believe that because they have interactions with liberal white people that they're the best, most charming person. You know, they're the most ideal person. So because of that, we've got self hatred that reflects back onto black people and that. And that's why I always say when black people get their head out of that fucking black and indigenous people get their head out of those doldrums, then we will end white supremacy. Because white people are the minority of the planet, man. You know, they can't rule over everyone. And think about it, they're not even a collective people like everybody else. So that's the fucking thing, you know. It'll end when we want it to end. And we really need to also realize that another reason why white fellas, you know, dislike black people in particular is because they seen at the time when they came into contact with black and indigenous people how willing we were to, you know, be kind to them and fight in amongst each other, which still happens to this fucking day. That's why they can say, oh, use a shit. And you hear a lot of white dogs in you know, white trashy motherfuckers, because always those sleazy gutter trash white people always talk what's really on their mind. And they are no holds barred, and they'll say things like, oh, you know, black fellas, they all fighting amongst each other, they're the scum of the earth. And it's like, look, take a look at you. You're a fucking junkie who's got a needle in your arm, you scumbag. So, but, you know, you'll hear that kind of shit, and they believe that, you know. And also, you know, going back to that time where they thought they were superior than us and all that, you know, from years ago, a lot of white fellas still believe to this day that black and indigenous people are less intelligent than them, which is complete horse shit. So they actually still walking around with 18th century fucking 1800 beliefs, you know, which is kind of incredible, you know. And I've noticed over the decades that white fellas have never ever fucking changed their fucking. But I'm here in Australia, so I don't know what it's like where you are in the world if you listen in another country. But I notice here, white fellas have never fucking changed their stance on how they view Indigenous Australian people at all, let alone anyone else, really. You know. But yeah, you know. And then you know, like in the Bible, I was trying to say that Cain was cursed and all this, and there's a curse on black people and all that, and so they kind of believe all these concoctions is why we get mistreated. So keep all of this in mind. Just understand that they've got really deep held, strong beliefs and motives on why we continuously get mistreated and why, you know, we need to change these precedents. And realistically, I think that white people believe they're meant to be dominant, you know, and because of that, I think that well, we will have to see, you know, like if and when black and indigenous people can get their act together, and you know, end the bickering, end the infighting, and the fucking never-ending, you know, love of being in the gutter and gutter culture and all that. Because I'm sick of way too many fuck niggas like that. You know, you see way too many people who grow up with scummy fucking, particularly mothers as parents, who teach their kids to be degenerates and hate the world and, you know, coon and buffoon, all that ratchet shit. And, you know, when we got you know, as people are saying, we're raising a generation of spineless, brainless zombies. You know, when we got that kind of shit, then, you know, like, the black struggle might, you know, be in jeopardy, because that's the main people having kids, because a lot of black fellas are going MGTOW because they're sick of it. So, yeah, I just think that we really need to understand that we need to get our act together internally as well before we eventually overthrow white supremacy, because it's going to be one hell of a fucking fight. If anything, there's going to be a fight to the bitter end, and bring about the apocalypse and all that shit. It's getting rid of white supremacy, you know? And yeah, okay, well, I might even make a part two to this if I feel like it, or if anybody wants to add anything onto this in the comment section or whatever, or a response video. But other than that, that's it.